Hi, my name is Mark Wheat. I'm Vice President of Sales at LogZilla. Earlier today, I published an article about getting visibility into your infrastructure by creating a networking dashboard. And in that article, I had mentioned that you can create one of these dashboards to give you that type of visibility in under 10 minutes. And some people called me on it. They reached out to me and said, I don't believe you can do that. We would really like to see how you could do that in under 10 minutes. So this is my attempt at making sure that we can get that done in under 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. We're already a minute into it, and I've only got 10 minutes to do this. So let's create a new dashboard. And what I'm doing is I'm over here, I'm clicking on the dashboard drop down, and I'm adding a new dashboard. And it's going to ask me a couple things. Number one, the name. So I'm going to call this MW Network Dashboard, because that is cool. And then you've got several options here. Default infographic. If you notice the background here on the dashboard that we're looking at currently, this is the default. I like the infographic. It's a little different. It gives you a darker background color, and I think it just looks kind of cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that. I'm going to click Save. And that tells me that I've saved the dashboard, and it's going to put me into this new empty dashboard. So the plan for this particular dashboard, I'd like to have several widgets up here. And widgets for LogZilla users are basically filters that allow you to see different components of your infrastructure and or your logging environment, whatever you're going to be doing out there. And what I'd like to do on this one is maybe show the top 10 Cisco devices with failure, maybe do the number of Cisco events per day, the number of Cisco events per second, show some Cisco mnemonics, and then later we'll get into actually doing some queries to pull out some data so that we can just stream real time and show the logs as they're coming in. So let's go ahead and add a few widgets. And like I said, I wanted to do a couple of top 10s. So you know what, I'm going to do one top 10. So I'm going to do a top end, a top host, which is going to be good. And I'm also going to do a Cisco mnemonic top end. And on the event rate, I'd like to do events per day and also an events per second for Cisco stuff. And I'm also going to do a last in. So that's the last number of, the last few events. We'll start with this and then we'll kind of move on once we get these going. So as you can see, I've added these. It's popped out some default stuff here. Let's go ahead and start with this top one. I want it to be the top 10 Cisco devices with failure, and I want it to take up about half of the screen here. So I've stretched it out, and now I'm going to come in and configure this guy. So this is going to be the top 10 Cisco devices with failure. I like that. And the way that we're going to make sure that only Cisco devices get in here is through the program. We're going to come down and select Cisco. And we're going to show the host field. We're going to come over here, and instead of 5, we're going to say we'd like 10 devices. And we're going to save changes. And here we go, top 10 Cisco devices with failure. So we're on our way. This is nice, and you can drill into these guys. If you come over here, you drill into any of these, it's going to take you into a filtered view that's going to show you just those hosts. So if you're coming in the morning and you see something that's a little irregular, just drill into that, see what's going on with the environment. So now let's work with this one. Let's slide him over and stretch him out to be about the same size as the first one. And we're going to edit this, and we're going to say that this is the Cisco events per day. And what we're going to do is just filter this by the program equal to Cisco. I like that. We got Cisco selected. You can select multiples. And I don't like showing the last. I'd rather show max. So I'm going to put max on and show last off. And I'm going to save my changes. We're building the dashboard here. So here's our Cisco events per day. I'm going to slide the top programs over here. Okay, and I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to say, I'll make this one the top Cisco mnemonics. Top 10, no, Cisco, our top Cisco mnemonics. That sounds good. I like that. Come into program, limit this to Cisco. And in the field, I don't want to show program. I want to show the Cisco mnemonic. And I don't want 3, I want 15. And I think we're good to go there. So now we've got the top Cisco mnemonics. Looking good. Now over here, I want to make this the last 5 Cisco mnemonics. So let's do this. Last 5 Cisco mnemonics. We are actually going to sort that by Cisco. And instead of showing host, we're going to show Cisco mnemonic. And instead of 10, we're going to put 5 in there. Man, we are looking good. All right, I'm going to stretch the Cisco mnemonic over a little bit. I'm going to move the events per second up here, and I'll slide this one under that, and then stretch the mnemonics out just a little bit so that we can get most of those 15 in there. This is looking good, folks. So on the events per second, I can tell already I want to stretch that out, and let's just look at the Cisco events per second. And we're going to limit this just to Cisco, and we're not going to show the last, we're going to show the max, and save changes on that. We're rocking and rolling here, folks. Okay, and we've already got our last 5 Cisco mnemonics. We look good. So, I mean, just that quickly, we're about 7 minutes into it. I've got a lot of visibility into my environment, and I can see that most of the Cisco events that are coming through are ASA events, so there's firewall type of activity happening there. So now I want to start looking for some failures or some errors, and the way that we can do that is to query LogZilla to grab that data, and then once we filter the data and pad it the way that we want it, we can save that back to the dashboard. So one thing that I always love to do is to start out with error, and I'm going to put a wildcard on that, and I'm actually only interested in Cisco errors, so I'm going to do a search here. And there's probably a lot of errors in my database, so it might take just a second. Let's go back to running over a VPN, underpowered Mac, several other things that are going on here with me. But so when we get that search, here it is. It found 2,482 log entries that were Cisco that had some type of error. And while that thing finishes up here, what I'm going to do, if you notice, when it finds results within LogZilla, you're going to have the option to export it to a file or save it to a dashboard, or just go in and work with it. But I'm going to save it to a dashboard, and we're going to call this Cisco errored host. And there's the filter criteria, and we're going to add this to my new dashboard. Okay, you're going to have to step it up a little bit here. Almost at 10 minutes, but I'm going to give myself an extra minute or so because I did a little introduction. So Cisco errored host, I like that, and I'm actually going to stretch it out a little bit so you can read it a little easier. Now you can go in and say, hey, I'd really like to see this, just the highest severity ones, by coming over here and clicking on the widget settings and adding some additional filter criteria. You can come over here to severity and knock that down, and then select the ones that you're interested in. Very easy thing to do. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. And you know what? I like to look for failed. So let's look for failed. And it retained the mnemonic, the program for Cisco. So let's do a search on that. And it's going to take just a moment, and it will bring back all of the events that have failed in the message body. And once we get that back, what we're going to do is add that to the dashboard as well. Okay, so we found almost 2,000 events that were Cisco that had failed in it. So this is looking pretty good. Looking at some of the events down here, it all looks good. Some handshake problems, some firewall issues. I'm going to go ahead and save this to the dashboard. Once again, we're going to call this Cisco failed. I think we've already got one down there, and we're going to add that to my new dashboard. All right, and I think we're finished. This is enough to really get you some insight into what's going on in your environment. But I'm going to do just a couple extra little things. If you guys don't need any more, you can go ahead and stop watching. But I know that I like to add some things that I see in the environments. For instance, duplex mismatches. When you see a duplex mismatch, that's a performance problem. I need to be able to be aware that that's happened and do something about it. I don't think I've got any duplex events in my system. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to do this. If I did a query for duplex, it wouldn't bring back any data, but I know that I want to go ahead and have a widget up on my screen that shows duplex mismatches. So what I can do is just redo one of the searches where I know I've got data. So here we're redoing the search for failed, and what's going to happen is when that search screen comes back up, what I'm going to do is ask it to save it to my dashboard. And when I ask it to save it to my dashboard, what I'm going to do is go in and edit failed and change that to duplex. And when I do that, what it's going to do for me is it's going to save it to the dashboard, and from then on it will be looking for duplex instead of failed. So this is showing me that I've got these. I'm going to save it to dashboard, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to do here. We're going to call this duplex mismatch, and instead of failed, I know my query is duplex, and I want to add that to my MW dashboard. Save the changes. And now we're looking for specific events. I could look for subnet. I could look for a lot of different things, but this is what I want. So within about 10 minutes, I did a lot of talking here, but you're able to see the devices within your Cisco environment that have the most amount of failures. You're able to take a look at the events per day, and if you'll notice, the velocity of events actually increase as anomalistic behavior are happening within your environment. So if you see a big rise, you can do this per hour, per day, per second. If you notice a big rise, you can just click right into that and say, okay, well, what's going on? Show me what the anomalistic behavior is. And then here, taking a look at the top Cisco mnemonics. If you find things that are not ASA, that might be some type of issue. So you could go in and look for stuff that you normally wouldn't see up here. Here's all the hosts that we have with errors in the message text. So something's going on here. Something needs to be done. And also the Cisco failed events down below it. These are things that have failed within the event stream. And then lastly, our duplex mismatch. So we've created a great little dashboard here. We're just scratching the surface. There's so much more that we could do, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off now. Stay tuned for a couple other videos that I hope to do, talking about how we can further manage these desktops, our dashboards, and just some workflow things. The way that LogZilla has built their system, it's kind of self-maintaining, and we want it so that you basically have a clear dashboard unless there's actual problems that are popping up. You don't need to be looking at a lot of the things that are not really important, and we give you the facilities to do that. So close enough to 10 minutes. I'm gonna declare this a victory, and hope you guys get a lot of use out of this.